There would have been some post-production. I don't think the budget would have been enough to have shot this on film.
You can just put a filter on it. You can just use AI to make it look like that.
Maybe they did use AI. Maybe David Dastmalchian wasn't even there.
Wasn't
Just,
even
like,
there. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Asian Blokes Podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, films, TV shows, comic books, anime, music, food, video games, whatever we're feeling at the time, really. My name is Dan with H, and with me, as always, is my co-host Tavi. Hello, Tavi.
Hello, Dan.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, that's right. It's the Lao New Year. Sok di pi mai, as we say.
Sok di pi mai, motherfucker.
Sok di pi mai, yeah. What did you do for Lao New Year? Did you do anything?
Not really. I called my parents, but yeah, that's about it. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, I actually had a pretty low-key one this year. We just had a kind of a family, like a Lao gathering just at one of our friends' places. But it was a pretty small gathering, and it ended at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and we just went home. And what I pretty much did on the Lao New Year was watch Coachella and play Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. That's pretty much my Lao New Year, which is not the most traditional thing.
That sounds like a pretty good time there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was the week following your trip back down to Melbourne and us doing a little bit of shooting and gathering. So it was nice to have a chill weekend where I just zombied out.
And that's the spirit of Lao New Year, I think. It's just chilling out, you know?
Chilling out, yeah. I didn't get involved in any water fights, if you want to explain the history or the usual tradition. I'm not really sure about the history about it.
I would not explain the history because I have no idea what the history is.
We're the best Lao kids. Well, the symbolism is it washes away like all the bad stuff. I mean, usually we have these little kind of gatherings called like Basi, which is usually like a celebration of sort of like a big event. It's usually like if someone's getting engaged or married, or if there's like a birth of a child, or just usually a big event. But I guess Lao New Year is a big event, so we often like tie strings, these kind of friendship bracelet looking things that I often keep them on for like a long time.
Yeah, you keep them on for way too long. Until they get all festy.
Yeah, the magic runs out after 3 days. Yeah, but I just keep them on because, you know, it's cool. Yeah. I just like them.
They're pretty cool. They're pretty cool. It's a fun time in general. So to all our listeners that are also celebrating the Solar New Year, Happy New Year. But we have a pretty big episode lined up for the first episode of the Lao New Year. We are going to talk about Coachella and your experience with this year's Coachella. We're also going to talk about Durarara and Baccano news, as well as the Last Ronin news. And then we're going to do some mini reviews of Robot Dreams and Exuma before going into our main review for this episode, Late Night with the Devil.
Ooh, spooky.
If you want to jump around, I'll put time codes in here. So you mentioned that you spent the weekend watching bits and pieces of Coachella in amidst all the Yakuza gameplay. As somebody that famously doesn't give a shit about Coachella, Tavi, can you explain how this year's Coachella was for you?
I'd been watching Coachella probably since 2013. I've never been to Coachella, but YouTube often broadcasts it online through the streaming. But there was a period of time where I stopped watching Coachella.
Why is that, Tavi?
when Coachella became uncool, I would say. When, you know, I mean, yes, of course.
For the record, I've never thought Coachella was cool, but go on.
Coachella used to be cool. It used to have like a lot of good musicians. It was very, from my memory, it was very much like an indie rock, alternative rock and metal kind of festival. There were some DJ sets, but they were often relegated to like the one stage where a lot more of the electronic stuff would be playing.
Now, this review of this year's Coachella is coming with a big old asterisk because I mean, regular listeners of our show will know, but maybe new listeners might not know your music taste. They tend to err on the side of alternative rock as opposed to DJ music.
I mean, I like hip hop and stuff. I mean, Tyler played this year, and we've experienced seeing him live, and it was really fun.
Yeah,
and he was also really fun this year as well. He was one of the highlights of this year's festival.
Okay,
but I mean, like, I think it was the year that I think Beyonce was announced as a headline, and I was like, oh, okay.
That was the day Coachella died.
That's where I could pinpoint where Coachella was like. I mean, you're going to, like, look, I am an older millennial, and as you said, my tastes are on the side of like alt rock and whatnot, and I get that. Coachella is a representation of what is popular within the zeitgeist. But there's a lot of really bad stages this year, to be honest.
Okay.
There are a couple of, like, I think I was telling you, I just saw a couple of DJ sets. Even someone that I kind of like a little bit. I watched like Peggy Gao. There's only so much I can take of that kind of music live because you kind of really have to be there. It's, how would I describe the music? It's beat.
It's vibe music.
Yeah. It's and then like all the stages were kind of the same. They're just like, David Guetta trying to end racism kind of thing with some like visual in the background,
sure.
and then what I've dubbed the American Psycho-esque dances.
Yeah.
So if I'm sure a lot of people, I mean, definitely in meme culture, if you've seen that movie, if you watch the first scene, there's like a strip club that they go to, and that's what dancers in that scene remind me of all the dancers on the stage when it was on these sets.
From what I have seen of Coachella, of recent Coachellas, it seems like a lot of the work goes into kind of the pageantry of it these days. Like, you got Lana Del Rey coming out in a motorcycle, you got Grimes coming out in some kind of big metal spider. So, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of production work going into that aspect of the festival.
Yeah, but that's kind of like an issue in a sense that there wasn't that much production value back in the day.
Yeah. It just sounds like bands, right? Just bands.
It's music.
Yeah.
Like, from what I remember, one of the earliest Coachella performances I remember was watching At the Drive-In, which is probably a band that you haven't listened to.
No.
But that was like comprised of the Mars Volta lead singer and guitarist. Anyway, they were really cool, and it was just them on stage. There wasn't really much fluff going on.
Okay.
And I remember, like, through the years, I would just sit and just alternate the stages. And I think the last time I watched it in entirety before this year was when I was in Japan. I was just like flicking through.
I remember that night.
Having a good time. Yeah.
All I could hear was like, you were staying at my place on one of the nights.
Yeah.
And I could just hear you like downstairs in your room listening to it on the phone. And I could just hear like Bon Iver just wailing like throughout my house.
Yeah. But anyway, I wasn't super impressed by the headliners this year. Like,
who was headlining?
It was Lana Del Rey, who I'm just like kind of meh about. Like, I don't really listen to her that much, but I know that she has released good music. I just don't really listen to her. And my feeling is the same with Doja Cat as well.
Okay.
So I think Boone likes Doja Cat quite a bit, but I don't listen to her at all. But the only headliner that I was excited to see was Tyler, the creator, and another band, one of my favorite bands of all time, which is Deftones. And I was like, they're definitely not headlining, but they were probably my favorite set. But I was like watching it so I could go on a rant on how shit Coachella has become since. But it was honestly like not bad, man. We wanted to watch Coachella because like La Seraphim were playing this year, and I was curious to see what La Seraphim are like.
That was the only act
stage
that I watched.
that you watch, and it was probably like it was a fun act, but definitely not the best Asian artist that was there. I mean, what I've seen this year at Coachella is the large influx of Asian artists, and I'm not just talking about like Asian American artists. There was a lot of bands from Korea and Japan, and a couple from China. I watched the 88 Rising and Future set, which was just like a smorgasbord of upcoming artists and current artists that are signed to 88 Rising, and some artists that performed on that medley. Ones that had their own set as well, like Yoasobi.
Yeah.
They were really fun. It's funny because before they were on the medley, it was like these two Korean Americans, like, yeah, what the fuck is up, motherfucker? Yeah, like kind of the like paraphrase, yeah, suck my dick, yeah, get on with the show. And then Yoasobi comes and like, hi everyone. It was just very like contrasting with like cuteness. Yeah, but they were pretty fun. And Atarashi Gakko was really cool. They had their own stage as well. I really like those guys. They got like they have very interesting choreography. They're very like tongue-in-cheek, and they're like a group that doesn't really take themselves too seriously. And I think that's kind of what elevates them. There were a couple of Korean acts that were really surprising to me. I stumbled across ATEEZ, and some people who listen to our podcast know that I'm not the biggest fan of boy bands because I'm a millennial Asian male, so I often just like...
And a bit of a perv as well. So.
And a bit of a perv, yeah. But I just stumbled across ATEEZ, A-T-E-E-Z.
Is it ATEEZ or ATEEZ?
ATEEZ, I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever it is. They were really fun. They were very high energy.
Sure. Did it harken back to the DBSK days?
No, it was actually... kind of slightly heavy, which I'm not sure if it was the inclusion of a live band, but it was actually very enjoyable. And I've not listened to any one of these songs, or I have no idea who these guys were, but I was like, oh, this is pretty fun. And there was another group called The Rose, which was like an indie alternative pop Korean band.
Okay.
And they were just very like uplifting to listen to. It kind of reminds me of a band that like an anime girl or a Japanese schoolgirl would like fall in love with in like a Japanese piece of media. That's how I would kind of describe their look and their sound.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just it was fun. And I really enjoyed them, and they were kind of getting into it. They kind of started off with like being polite, how you doing? Like, yeah, because a lot of the like American artists, like Deftones or Tyler, yeah, what the fuck is going on? Yeah, so let's fucking go Coachella. Like a lot of the Asian artists are a bit more polite, but I think once they got loose, they're kind of like, let's fucking go, like get your fucking ass. Even Last Ronin did that as well.
Sure.
But yeah, like I guess this is kind of a review of Last Ronin, which we said like. You and I have mixed feelings about.
Maybe we like 50% of their songs.
I'm pretty conflicted on my like of them because their stage, it was fun. I really appreciated the live band. I always vouch for like, I guess like when it comes to K-pop, like groups that have live music, I think it adds a lot more energy.
Yep.
Feels more organic. And they also chose to sing live as well, which is admirable. But also
bit of a risk.
Bit of a risk, especially La Seraphim being under the pump for not being the best singers and kind of getting.
Since watching them, I've seen a few posts just hating on their vocals, like
I've
really
seen
savage posts.
Yeah,
I don't think it was that bad. Honestly, like
I don't think it was that bad either. I've seen one like a post where they kind of like edited all like the bits where they're out of key and stuff, and
I'm pretty sure like the music has been down mixed as well to make it more obvious, and it's kind of just mean. Like
yeah, I don't know though. Like I'm mixed about it because I don't like I mean ultimately like La Seraphim.
I mean maybe the vocals weren't that good, but like I don't think anybody can say that they don't work hard. Like if it was a case of their vocals were shit because they're lazy, like that's a different story. But I don't think that is.
I think
the
so.
case.
Yeah.
I think they were just there to have a good time and to vibe and
and I think so too.
And it's like the imperfections that kind of make a live performance anyway, right? So
yeah, it works for a stage like Coachella where it is about just
Mm.
having fun,
It's about getting the fuck up and shaking your fucking ass or whatever.
Is that what
so she said something like that, right? Are you ready to shake your fucking ass?
Yeah. So like, good on them, man. Like, they're not squeaky clean. They're just having a good time, having fun. But I mean, compared to like 80s and even New Jeans, they performed at Lollapalooza last year. They were under the same environment and they sang better, I think.
Sure.
So,
but did they swear, Tavi? Did they tell you to shake your fucking ass? I think not.
New Jeans didn't. But like in just terms of like vocal skill, they were just better. But you were just talking about how like, you saw a lot of like hate posts about vocals. Like, man, that's like the shittest. That's why I don't often interact in like the community of K-pop because like it's just shit. Like I just enjoy what I like, and I don't like being influenced by
it's fine.
by that kind of stuff.
Just have a good time. Just vibe out. Sometimes it's not the most important thing in the world to always hit the note. Sometimes it's about the energy. Sometimes it's about the vibe.
I think the energy was good.
Yeah.
I had fun watching it, and I mean, I think they can only just get better or not.
Or not.
I think that all in all, I think I'm not going to say Coachella is good again because I looked at the Sunday date and I was like, I don't want to listen to anyone here except the 88 Rising and Atarashi Gakko stage.
But maybe that's the beauty of Coachella. Maybe there's something in there for everybody,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely skewed towards more like EDM.
Well, that's probably just what's more popular, though, Tavi.
But which is unfortunate because what's more popular is not that good.
I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to put a Tarashi Gakko on like a huge stage if they're not going to fill it out?
Yeah.
At least they have a stage for them.
Well, I'm glad that they have a stage, but like I'm just saying, like Coachella was cooler back then because they had.
Because the main acts were better musicians, in your opinion.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
No, it's not it's just fact.
Yeah, I'm glad that you have somewhat rekindled your fondness of Coachella.
Yeah, it's fun, I haven't talked shit on this podcast, but like a lot of the stuff I say, it is just within a bit of fun,
Of course.
I mean, like, obviously there's an element of truth to it, but we all like different. we all like different things.
We're all here to have fun. Speaking of fun, Tavi, what do you think about this? Durarara and Baccano might be returning very soon.
Oh yeah.
This is via animanga_leaks. In October 2017, Ryogo Narita, the author of Durarara and Baccano, announced that his works would go on indefinite suspension because he had been diagnosed with an incurable illness. 6.5 years after this announcement that worried his fan base, the author has announced that he is ready to end his break. So Narita shared an update via Twitter saying that he's very sorry that he's not been able to keep up to date since he was diagnosed. But as soon as his multimedia projects for other works have been resolved, he plans to resume Durarara and Baccano franchises and other works. So please wait for it. So it's some kind of like a disease that affects his joints, so his fingers and elbows and stuff. So that's why he hasn't really been able to work on it for the past 6.5 years, and it's kind of thrown a spanner in his works. But I would be really jazzed if Baccano and Durarara came back because I love those things. You watch them, right?
Yeah. Admittedly, I haven't finished any of those series.
Oh, okay.
I remember watching the start of Durarara like years and years ago, and I thought it was cool, but I think I just was busy with stuff, and I didn't end up finishing watching it, and I got maybe halfway through Baccano or 3/4 of the way.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, I stopped as well.
Okay. So maybe you didn't think they were that good.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. Like, I think maybe that was the year where I kind of started to shy away from anime series a little bit. I remember those shows being quite cool when I watched them.
They are cool. They definitely have a sense of style.
Yeah.
For those unfamiliar, I mean, both of them are basically a collection of colorful characters in a situation that involves intrigue. So in Baccano, it's the whole season is set on a train with a bunch of gangsters and a bunch of immortal beings knocking heads. and Durarara is set in Ikebukuro, or Tokyo as a whole, really, and it involves rival gangs and headless motorcycle rider.
That's I remember that.
So really creative stuff, really cool vibe. I really enjoy the vibe of these titles, and the characters are really interesting. So I think you should revisit it, Tavi. I think you'd probably dig it if you watched it today.
Are they like conclusive? It doesn't end on a cliffhanger. Yeah.
Each season is pretty self-contained. So the first season of Baccano and the first season of Durarara are pretty self-contained. I think Durarara may have had a short second season or an OVA to follow it up. But like you can watch season 1 and be satisfied with the story that you get. And if you're a fan of anime with cool characters and, jazz, it's a very jazzy in vibe, I would definitely recommend giving these two a watch. Probably Baccano. I think I prefer Baccano a little bit more.
Yeah. I remember Baccano was like kind of set like in Italy or something, or the backdrop is supposed to be like...
Yeah, it involves the Italian mafia.
Well, I guess Baccano is supposed to be kind of like a play on like an Italian word, I guess, which I don't know if it is a word, but...
Let's see what Baccano means in Italian. Maybe it's a slur. Baccano. Italian.
Anything?
It means racket, din, and noise.
Okay, there you go. So it did mean something.
Non fate baccano means don't make a lot of racket.
Yeah, it's a bit of a racket. Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't say I'm super excited. I'm just like, that's cool news to hear that it's getting another season. I guess if I watched it, I would probably be a bit more excited.
Well, let's see if we can excite you with the next bit of news, Tavi. This is via The Hollywood Reporter. There is a live-action R-rated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie in the works from producer Walter Hamada.
Oh, really?
So this movie is going to be based on the Last Ronin comic series, which is a recent IDW comics series.
So is the comic, is it canon or is it like an older story?
No, so this is kind of based in its own universe, I guess. It's without spoiling The Last Ronin for anyone, but basically it's a post-apocalyptic New York and all the Ninja Turtles have been killed except for one. And the one remaining turtle has to go back to New York and kind of confront the Foot Clan and the new Shredder and sort things out there. So it is pretty dark in tone compared to stuff that people might be more familiar with, like the 90s cartoon series and even the Michael Bay films. It's a bit more somber.
Was The Last Ronin well received as a comic?
Yes, it's a pretty popular comic. I'm pretty sure it was getting a video game at some point. I'm not sure if that's still happening.
I mean, like I'd be interested to see it then. Like if you had told me it's like, they're making a darker Ninja Turtles and it's like it's its own thing, then I would be like, I don't know about that. I mean, if you had asked me like 10 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, sure, make everything dark. Sure. But I mean, I just finished watching The Last Airbender, the original Last Airbender, the Nickelodeon cartoon, and it's great. And without going on too much of a big rant about it, what makes that show really good is the kids aspect of it, the learning lessons and a lot of the humor. They've really catered it well to the medium of a kids television show and really ran with it. And it has violence, but there's no on-screen killing whatsoever. And compared to the first episode of the live action, which you and I were going to cover, but we were just like, nah, it's too much.
It wasn't bad enough or good enough for us to be bothered covering.
I watched the first episode and I was like, long story short, I was not impressed for the same reasons I didn't really like the One Piece live action. It's just kind of like doesn't need to exist. But for both of those live action series, they succeeded in renewed interest in the old series. So I'd watched the original Last Airbender and that's easy to do because it fucking ends. It's not 1,000 episodes.
You gotcha.
So, no, it was really good. I can see why it's revered. But with The Last Ronin, if it's based on something that's popular, I'd be down to watch it for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the Ninja Turtles franchise, because it originally started as quite a dark comic, like a parody of Daredevil and Ronin. But, the 90s cartoon definitely was more catered towards kids, which, like, I feel like a lot of the subsequent cartoon series and the Michael Bay movies, because of this, were kind of directed towards kids more. But I feel like there is a lot of like extended Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles media that, they're targeted more to the 30 and 40-year-old market. So
yeah, I mean, because we're all old fuckers now.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I think it'd be interesting if it's based off that. If it was just like, I don't know, a studio trying to make something that is unnecessary, like the live action Last Airbender, which has none of the childish charm that comes from the original show, then I wouldn't really see the point.
Well, this adaptation is going to be produced by Paramount, and screenwriter is going to be Tyler Burton Smith, who co-wrote the upcoming Boy Kills World, which looks okay.
It looks fun. I'm not sure how I completely feel about that movie either.
We haven't seen it at time of recording, but trailer looks pretty fun. And it looks violent, so this movie will probably end up being pretty violent, which would be fitting with the comic, not to drop any spoilers. I'm excited for that. Hopefully it's good. Would you prefer it to be an animated movie, or would you like them to do like the big rubber suits?
No, make it animated.
Animated? Okay.
I think it has to be animated.
I wouldn't mind the rubber suits. I think maybe a blend of CGI and rubber suits. Because they'd only need one of them, because there's only one of them alive.
You can't really maneuver very well in those rubber
Surely
suits.
Technology in the realm of rubber suits has gone a long way since those 90s movies.
I don't know. I feel like an animated medium would be better. Just I don't know. Just my gut instinct would say that.
That would be pretty cool. Either way, make it happen. I'm jazzed for that. But yeah, let's talk about something else that is animated. You recently watched Robot Dreams.
Yeah, that's right. I watched it a couple of days ago now. I stumbled across this trailer when I was watching Perfect Days in the cinema, and I was like, oh, this movie looks like a lot of fun. It's just about like a lonely dog who wants a friend, so he gets that in the form of a robot. But unfortunately, there's a circumstance that he kind of has to abandon the robot and wait until a certain season is over so he can go back and fix him.
Yeah, that much is shown in the trailer itself.
Yeah. I noticed that this film was nominated for Best Animated Film in the Oscars. And yeah, it was sort of what I expected, but also not really. It's a really, really great animation style. It's set in a kind of 1980s New York where everything is kind of the anthropomorphized animals. So there's like dogs and cats and elephants and whatever. But yeah, like a lot of the music was really good. They really hammered down the Earth, Wind and Fire song, September, if you remember the trailer.
Yep.
I think they probably got the license to that song and just used it. It plays like a big element in the plot. Like, yeah, it's kind of like their song.
Well, there's no dialogue in this film, right? So they got to feel...
Yeah, no dialogue. It's all
put some kind of sound in it.
Yeah. No, it's all grunts and only like the only spoken words is from some of the soundtrack where you hear the songs. So it was really cool. But it was a lot more slice of lifey than I expected. And I think it's really nice. It does hit you in the feels, but it's also not too heavy handed in that manner. Like you're not going to bore yourself crying, I don't think. But when it finishes, it's kind of like, damn, man, it's kind of real. Like it's, I think it has a good message for the kids because it's definitely marketed as a kids film.
Do you think kids would enjoy this film?
I think so. I think they probably wouldn't get... It's probably like something that you would watch and appreciate when you're young. And then you'd get it a lot more when you're older.
It seems like more of a film for film nerds, to be honest.
Yeah, it does. But I think like if you were a kid if you're a young kid, I think you could watch it and there's nothing egregious about it and you would just be entertained.
I guess the characters are kind of cute. Yeah.
The characters are cute. There's nothing really offensive about it, except there's a group of like punk monkeys that give the finger, which I was very surprised at, which is kind of funny. I guess there's a little bit of threat within the film,
but there's no dialogue though. So like, how will kids know? But I mean, like, what to think?
We watch fucking Pingu, man.
Yeah, I guess dialogue. That's true. Yeah.
We watch a lot of shit. That makes it easier for kids.
I guess
to
Minions
digest,
don't speak, and kids fucking love Minions.
Yeah, which is unfortunately the more popular product because Minions is garbage. But yeah, I mean, this film is definitely like a filmmaker's film. I mean,
if you're a film nerd that is also a parent, maybe trick your kid into watching this with you.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot better than what like Disney has been making these fucking days. Yeah, I did see a trailer for Inside Out 2, which I wouldn't mind watching. I like the first one.
Yeah, everybody likes Inside Out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it needed a sequel.
Yeah, but I guess that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it needed a sequel. I don't think it's going to be as good because it'll just be like a retread. But like, I will support these corporate products if they are good. I mean, I support a Seraphim, which is quite purely like a corporate product.
I think there's a factor that's missing from the Disney lineup to capture your interest. But no, Robot Dreams looks good. I think if you watch the trailer and it looks like something that you might like, you should probably watch it because I feel like the trailer is basically the movie in a nutshell.
It's a lot more somber than you'd expect, but it's not depressing. It's just like, kind of, it is what it is. Well,
let's talk about something more somber then. You recently watched Exuma.
That's right. I actually forgotten about that. I was actually going to talk about Night Swim, but it's a pretty forgettable film. We watched Night Swim after we got home from Late Night with the Devil. We were kind of having a horror movie run, and we were a bit tired, so we'll just check on something bad. So we put on Night Swim, and it's, I mean, it wasn't as bad as like the critics make it out to be, but it's nothing special either. It's just like
mediocre.
It's a little bit mediocre. The premise I find is kind of fun. It's a very like novella style of like horror story. It's something that you would read in like a 30-page short story.
Sure.
But what lets it down is just it's just not very scary, to be honest. There's some like chills, but like then there's a bit where you see the CGI fat man monster ghost thing and it's like, oh, is that it? And then it's just like, okay, the fear was gone.
Often the reveal is like make or break for a horror film. Sometimes a lot of the scares are taken out once you actually see what the entity looks like. Kind of reminds me of what's that movie, Insidious? You ever watch the first Insidious movie? And you see like the demon for the first time and it just looks like Darth Maul. Hard to take him seriously after that.
So I fell asleep in the last 20 minutes, so I was drifting in and out. But it ended pretty much as I thought it would. So it's nothing special. It's just I wouldn't waste your time. I wouldn't recommend it. I think there's a bit of a trend with like horror movies recently, because Imaginary came out pretty recently. Like the kind of low impact PG-13 horror that I think Myth-Regan kind of started.
Like Five Nights at Freddy's, that kind of thing.
Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I mean a horror movie doesn't need to be violent to be scary. Skinamarink.
Sure. I mean, Blair Witch Project. People are really scared of Blair Witch Project, and there's not much of a body count in that movie.
The Nun 2 as well. There's not that much of a body. It's just a bit, it's just a bit getting a bit too silly. Like, I still watch them as guilty pleasures because these movies are my guilty pleasures. But I don't know if I should be supporting these kind of movies
because there's a few of those kinds of things like Lights Out, and even Smile is a bit like that as well. It feels like a...
Smile is much better there.
Oh, Smile's better? Okay. Because I thought Smile was okay.
A lot better. I quite enjoyed Smile. It's got the scare. It's got a really strong opening, and it does have like some like graphic violence behind it as well. Smile did actually kind of scare me a bit. Because we were in New Zealand at the time we watched it.
Sure.
And then like I had to sleep in like an open room which looked like one of the main characters' rooms.
Yeah.
So, like, I was on the couch, and then I could see like silhouettes of lanterns and stuff. So I was like, is that a smile demon? So, like, yeah.
And then you
would
wake
say
up the next
smile
day and you're walking around New Zealand with all the smiling faces of the New Zealanders. You're like, are these guys
Yeah.
going to murder me? Probably.
It's like, nah, we're just really happy.
Yeah,
Because
for some reason.
We're in Queenstown,
Don't
which
trust
is a
him.
pretty happy place.
I don't trust
Yeah.
them, Tavi.
But yeah, I did also watch, I guess, the new hit Korean blockbuster horror movie, Exuma, which I was quite excited to see. And I wanted to cover on its own episode. But yeah, when I went to watch it, I thought it was just okay. Like, it was a little bit disappointing, unfortunately. Yeah, it had all the hallmarks of a pretty like good Korean horror. It had Choi Min-sik in it. It's about shamanism, basically. The plot, it's easy to follow, but maybe like hard to explain. It's about like a guy that sells burial plots, and he's got his crew of like shamans and stuff to bless the land before they like usually exhume the corpses of the families there to move them and then sell the land.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of these rich folks like bury their ancestors on these really nice plots of land, but then they just eventually want to sell it because they've made poor life decisions. But he comes across this one plot of land that is a bit more, I guess weirder or creepier, and they exhume the ancestor, and there's stuff that the people that gave him the job are not telling him, and yeah, they release some kind of supernatural force that fucks everything up, basically. I think overall it's a good movie, just not a great movie. I thought the shaman stuff was really fun to watch, and I really like how they kind of humanized a lot of the characters. Like, you see them do all this mystical stuff, but then the next scene one of them's at like a spin class or whatever, or they're just out drinking. Actually, just harkening back to what we were saying before, it just was not that intense. It wasn't that scary. The mood felt very much like, honestly, like a Hollywood movie. There's a lot of like mystical shit flying around and stuff, and yeah, it just was not. It just lacked the atmosphere, and it was going for like a blockbuster route, I think. Right. Which I think really resonated with Korean audiences, because this is the #1 grossing Korean film of this year so far.
I mean, it's got a pretty stacked cast, so that probably helps.
Yeah, it's got a really good cast, and it's got pretty good reviews as well. But I think for me, like, I wanted something just a little bit more intense and maybe a bit more atmospheric. Like, maybe if I watched it again, I might like it more, but I think I was kind of expecting like The Wailing 2, I suppose, which is like a masterpiece.
That's what the trailer makes
Korean
it look like
cinema
as well. Looks a bit more atmospheric, I guess.
Yeah, the first act is pretty atmospheric, and then for me, it kind of loses its way, I think. Because I don't think this is a bad movie. I was just disappointed, that's all.
Well,
maybe.
I guess speaking of middle-of-the-road horror films, shall we talk about Late Night with the Devil?
Would you say it was middle of the road?
Yes. I mean, I quite enjoyed this film.
Yeah.
But I think that's not to say that it isn't also middle of the road. It can be both things. But I guess we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So we'll do this movie non-spoiler section, and then we'll give you a spoiler warning before we start dropping major spoilers. But yes, as Tavi mentioned before, we are talking about this film because it was written and directed by a bunch of Melbourne bros, Cameron and Colin Cairnes. Not really familiar with their work. I'm just looking at their IMDb, and it seems like they do producing mostly. All stuff that I haven't really heard of or seen. But it was also filmed in Melbourne and has a bunch of Australian actors in it. So
I heard about this movie through Risky at first. I remember he linked me the trailer to this movie, and I thought, oh yeah, the plot looks pretty interesting. And he said, like, yeah, it's an American story, but it's an Australian film that was shot in Melbourne with majority Australian cast and actors, all playing Americans. But I think Risky said he knows like the son of one of the directors and writers. So there's somewhat of a connection.
Shout out to his family.
Shout out to his family. I really hope. I'm not going to do a David impersonation. But yeah, I really like the premise of it. I thought it was quite cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, because usually when I hear the word middle of the road, it's like more on the negative side of things.
Right?
Yeah. Like I really enjoyed the film, but I wouldn't say it's changed my life, which obviously not, every film should. But I think it's like all in all, like a pretty solid, fun horror movie. I really like the aesthetic, the 70s aesthetic.
So the premise that, as you mentioned, is an interesting one. Main character's name is Jack Glenroy, as played by David Dastmalchian. He is a rising star in the world of American late night talk shows in the 70s. His show Night Owls is second in ratings only to The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And as time passes and his star seems to fade, he decides to hold a special Halloween episode during Sweeps Week to kind of recover his ratings and get back in the game. For this special Halloween episode, he's invited a paranormal expert and the subject of her book, which is a girl that is supposedly possessed by a demonic entity. So he invites him onto his show, and spooky stuff starts to happen.
David Dastmalchian is one of those actors who you recognize instantly.
He's very much hey, it's that guy kind of guy. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think this might even be his first leading role.
Yes,
to be honest. Yeah,
yes.
He's come a long way since being the ratty mental patient guy from Dark Knight.
Yeah,
and then the guy who gets his throat smashed in 2049, and one of the like a supporting actor in the Angry Video Game Nerd movie.
Okay,
and Polka Dot Man.
He's Polka Dot Man as well. More recently.
But
he's kind of around,
he always plays someone that is unhinged.
Yeah, he's got that kind of face. He does that really well.
He's got a really good face.
He looks really sweaty all the time.
And he's got like kind of like a skeletal face.
Yeah, very gaunt.
But it's good to see him in this role.
So the writers specifically wanted him for the role of Jack Glenroy because they stumbled across an article that he'd written for a magazine. So he actually does a lot of writing aside from his
David
acting.
Dastmalchian?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he'd submitted an article to a magazine about like regional horror TV hosts.
Oh, okay.
And after the directors read that, they decided to send Dastmalchian their lookbook and the script. And the lookbook that they made was kind of like, it was designed to look like a 1970s TV guide.
Oh, yeah.
So after looking at that, Dastmalchian agreed. Yeah, decided to come to Australia, I guess, to be in their movie.
Yeah. Lookbooks, I've made a couple, and they're pretty fun to make because you're not releasing them publicly unless your movie is super successful and then people want extra shit.
It's basically trying to convey your creative vision, right?
But you don't have to worry too much about like referencing shit and like stuff,
you're right.
You're not, there's no
you don't have to give anybody credit, Tavi. You can just steal images right off the internet. You can make it with AI if you want, Tavi. Nobody gives a shit.
There you go. There's a little bit of controversy with that, which maybe we could have a bit of a talk about in this movie.
So a little bit of controversy behind it, which there were a couple of elements that were AI generated in this movie. It's nothing spoilery, but because the format is like a late night talk show, occasionally there are like commercial breaks, and in between, like to preface these commercial breaks, they'll have a card saying "We'll be right back" or a message from our sponsors or whatever. So some of those were generated by AI. Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
Which I guess it must have gotten leaked by somebody, and a certain people were talking about it, not in the most positive light. People are pretty against AI, especially in creative fields like the movie industry. As a creative yourself, Tavi, somebody that's in the film industry, how do you feel about AI?
Yeah, this is a massive can of worms. I'll try to keep it short.
Sure.
I think AI is. I'm not all for AI, but I think the way it was used in this film is, I think it's okay if you use it as kind of like a supplement, because most of what they've done is practical effects, and the scripts they wrote themselves. And I guess like the argument is, oh well, how do you know that? Well, you just don't know. Like you'll never know.
Sure.
But I think the danger of AI is when you have like companies who will just forego that entire creative aspect of it and be like, why would I write a script when I can get AI to do it? Or why would I have a director when I can just get AI to do it? You know what I mean? So it's just like, it does kind of promote maybe that kind of laziness amongst people who don't have the skill to create something. I'm not too worried when it comes to like writing my own stuff, because I have a pretty specific style of things that I do, and I don't think AI can replicate it, because the stuff that I draw influence from is not what's being fed into AI. Maybe I might be in over my head with, because maybe AI is obviously more advanced than me, but like I like to think that I have enough in my mind garage that is weird and unconventional that I don't have to worry about AI too much.
Well, it's the personality, isn't it? Like, it's not like you can say to an AI, hey, can you write this script in the style of an original Tabi Tongkam, you know? Because the AI doesn't know who you are. It doesn't have the same experiences.
Because I'm not successful, so it doesn't know who I am anyway. So it's like, but, you can't do it. You can't do it AI yet.
I guess at this point in time, it is hard for an AI to replicate a human being's personality and put that a personality into a creative piece of work. At this point in time, anyway. I guess the counter argument is kind of like, you know, where do you kind of draw the line? Like, maybe this is just, you know, opening the floodgates to AI pervading other parts of the film industry, I guess. And also, like, you know, a graphic designer could have made these cards. You know, they are also being creative when they're trying to make these cards as well, right? So, like, you're kind of taking that element away from them in particular. So,
look, to go in depth, we would need our own a new podcast to talk about AI. So I've had a discussion with some friends about this over the weekend, but I mean, I won't give the contents of that. You know, there's mixed opinions, of course, but I don't use AI personally.
I use AI all the time. I
always try to do things.
I use AI for stuff that I don't really care that much about, I guess. You know, and like,
I mean, I technically do, but I guess like Da Vinci, if I'm doing some stuff, it's like
if you want to,
AI.
You know, it's something as simple as removing the background from an image. You know, like I could do it myself, but AI is faster and it's the same result in the end, you know? So it's there. And I like, my stance, without getting too much into it, is that it is inevitable. You know, that's just the way technology is. Technology has always been taking people's jobs. But, you know,
I think so.
Jobs evolve, and at the end of the day, not to sound heartless, you know, people are going to lose their jobs, but new jobs will be created from it. And I don't think it will be able to entirely replace human beings being creative. In fact, I think AI might create more time for humans to be more creative. You know, like if we don't have to focus our energies towards kind of menial tasks, then we'll ultimately have more time to put towards creative endeavors, I hope. What I'm trying to say is that I salute our AI overlords, and if you're listening to this, Skynet, you know, I love you, man.
Fair enough, No, I won't comment too much more on that, because there's a lot to say, but that's all good. We're talking about a
fun movie
with the devil,
which it is fun
movie.
I think it's a really fun movie, despite it being a little bit average. I really like the aesthetic. I like kind of the authenticity behind it, I guess, as well. Like everything feels like it belongs in that era. Like Dastmalchian's performance is pretty much spot on. And I think like the production design is also quite spot on, except for maybe some of the fashion. I don't know, like some of like the guest haircuts, I guess they feel a bit modern, maybe. But nothing too noticeable.
The Silvio guy, the first medium.
Nah, like you kind of get what he's doing. He's doing like an exotic kind of look. I mean more like the doctor.
Christo. Sorry, I got that
wrong. I think the doctor just looks like she could be like walking around in today's world and she'd fit in. You know, and some of the crew as well, they just kind of look like just regular people rather than 1970s people. But then again, I'm not that, you know, attuned to 1970s fashion anyway, so
Well, I thought because there is a doctor character, Dr. June Ross, played by Laura Gordon, who I haven't seen in anything else. Yeah, a lot of these actors are Australian actors.
Yeah, we've got Ingrid Torelli, who plays the little girl Lily, Laura Gordon, who plays June, the doctor. Georgina Haig plays Madeline, which is Jack Delroy's wife. Georgina Haig is from Packed to the Rafters, which I haven't watched.
Yeah, I know that show, but I haven't watched it.
It's kind of one of those shows that was just on. It was just on after The Simpsons.
Pretty quintessential Australian TV drama.
But it's also got Ian Bliss playing Carmichael Hunt. So Ian Bliss I've seen in The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions.
Oh, really?
He plays Bane, the guy that Agent Smith goes into.
Yeah.
The guy that does a really good Hugo Weaving impression.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Which makes sense because that was shot in Australia as well. A lot of Australian character actors in the Matrix films.
Yeah, I liked his performance in this movie. Ian Bliss, he plays like the skeptical guy because he's he's an illusionist. So his purpose to be on this panel is to like dispel a lot of the so-called supernatural stuff that is apparently happening, and to give it like a logical, but it's just very smug about it. Yeah, it's quite fun. Yeah,
he's kind of like Simon Baker's The Mentalist. Like he went from one side to the other.
Yeah, I think the plot to this movie is like it's fairly simple.
Pretty straightforward.
It's pretty easy to follow. Yeah, it's very compelling. I think the movie does a good job of keeping you hooked onto like what is happening next, because it does start off as a very like it's like kind of like a lighthearted, cheesy like 1970s. Talk show host and like nothing much is going on. But when shit kind of starts happening, it does like. It ramps up pretty slowly. Like, not that much happens if you think about it. But I think enough happens you want to know more.
Yeah. It generates kind of like a sense of foreboding of things to come. There's just little things like you mentioned Crystal, like he's doing his like kind of fake psychic bit. But then, kind of shit starts getting a bit too real for him. And there's little bits like Lily, the little girl, she's like, the way she looks at the camera is like, ooh, I don't like that. It really gave me the heebie-jeebies.
I enjoyed her performance, actually. Just anytime she looked at the camera, because it's like...
It's not overtly sinister, but it is kind of like, I think... It just gives you that feeling of that doesn't feel right. Like you're not used to it.
Yeah, because she's a survivor of like a cult that like did a mass suicide kind of thing, and then like everyone burnt themselves, and then she was like the only survivor, but she had made connections with like Laura Gordon, who plays Dr. June Ross. But yeah, she's basically possessed by another being called what's it called, like
she calls it Mr. Wriggles.
Mr. Wriggles, that's it. Yeah, Mr. Wriggles. So it's kind of like a demon devil kind of thing. Yeah, there's obviously like a kind of a calling out the devil scene. But when she's just a normal kid, it's like scarier because she's weird.
She's just a little bit odd. Yeah,
she's odd. Yeah, and I think it's the little touches of it were quite nice because you're just like, man,
you never know what she's gonna do. Yeah. I think that was really effective. I think the pacing in this movie is really good. Like it's not really short, long. Yeah, it's like 90 minutes maybe.
Minutes?
Yeah.
90 minutes, yeah.
And because it feels like a talk show as well, like the bits that are the talk show really feel like you're watching a talk show. So it's kind of like you settle into that groove of like anybody that's watched the talk show is probably familiar with like how a scene is going to play out, like when they bring out the psychic. Like you've seen that kind of thing happen in talk shows, even if you're not a big talk show person. Like you kind of know what's up. It felt so much like a talk show that during my screening, whenever Delroy was like, and we'll be right back, like people would actually get up and like go to the bathroom. Really? And I'm like, the movie's still going, guys. Like you're gonna miss stuff. It's not actually a commercial break.
That's pretty funny, actually.
People kept standing up and leaving.
I enjoyed those little bits of like, it's just little touches of humor that makes sense to the atmosphere of the movie, because it's like this to us, the audience, like we know that there is some weird like shit happening on, But in the world of the film, it's like, even this shit is happening, it is still a talk show that is being filmed. So it's like, okay, this really scary shit's happened, but let's hear a word from our sponsor. It's just like, and they're just cutting to breaks and stuff. I actually quite like that. Yeah, we got a few chuckles here and there from my audience.
No, that's good.
No one left their seats. I guess that's the pensions crowd. It's not like that.
Maybe my audience was just so immersed.
Oh my God, like Forrest Whitakering.
Yeah. But I do like the format that it's like you're watching the show, but it's like a found footage style movie, I guess. So the way that the story is framed is that we are watching footage from the live telecast, so we're seeing like behind the scenes stuff as well during the commercial breaks. It makes sense in the narrative, and it helps to keep the story going as well.
It is necessary to do that, but the behind the scenes stuff does kind of break the immersion a little bit, because it's like that you need it for like the exposition of backstory. So I get it. But like, I'm thinking like, as a camera guy, it's like they're talking about like some pretty personal stuff there. And then it's like, ooh, just film this. Like, get it.
But they're still mic'd up though, Tavi. So like, wouldn't the microphones, like, during commercial breaks, you wouldn't cut the microphones, right? Like, you'd still be recording?
I don't know, actually. I think, I'm not sure how that procedure works. I guess there would still be like transmitting to like the I guess there'd be like the main console bay.
I imagine if they did stop the microphones, they'd have to do like a reset kind of thing, and then that takes time. Like
maybe it is realistic and I'm wrong, because I haven't worked in television before, so I don't know.
But no, like some of the camera angles that they get during the behind the scenes stuff don't seem that plausible, because it's like sometimes they go backstage and I'm like, why are there cameras backstage, you know?
I feel like if it was like someone that had like left the camera and like taken a break or whatever, and it was just like a shot of their feet that is misframed, but you can still hear them. I reckon that would kind of convey it a bit better. But maybe it doesn't look as aesthetic, but it would look more like authentic, I guess. But it's not a big deal.
Yeah, you don't really think about it, I guess. I think like the way that the footage is presented feels authentic. I didn't really notice it that much when I was watching it, but is there like kind of like a film grain going on?
That probably would have been like a post-production thing. Maybe in the color grading as well. I think it's like maybe like a little bit of that kind of I don't think it's halation. I'm not sure how you would describe it, but there would have been some post-production. I don't think the budget would have been enough to have shot this on film. But like, TV shows are not shot on film anyway.
Yeah, you can just put a filter on it. You can just use AI to make it look like that.
Maybe they did use AI. Maybe David Dastmalchian wasn't even there. Just like scanned him.
Maybe he's never been there.
Maybe we haven't heard of any of these actors because they're all AI.
Maybe we're living in the Matrix right now, Tavi. Who knows?
I just found out that the narrator at the start of
is Michael Ironside.
Is Michael Ironside. Yeah, there you go, the other. I thought he passed away, but no, he's still around.
Maybe he did. Maybe he's AI, Tom.
He's been in the game for a long time.
Yeah, it's great.
Like a really long time. Like I recently watched Starship Troopers.
Oh yeah. Great
recently,
movie.
And he's in it, has that really famous line, "Come on, you apes, you want to live forever." It's great movie.
But no, like I think because even some of the effects, they feel kind of a bit dated in a good way.
Yeah.
Because this is shot in the style of a 70s talk show, right? There's no real reason for the effects to look like they come from a 70s movie, you know?
Yeah.
But because they do, I feel like it's still in keeping with that kind of immersive feeling you get. Which is interesting. It's an interesting direction, yeah.
Yeah, there's one particularly good kind of like slightly gory special effect, which I quite enjoyed. It's a little bit of a spoiler.
Maybe we should get into spoilers before we jump into that. But I mean, like, yeah, I think it's good. It's good fun.
Yeah. I definitely watch it.
I think watching it in theaters or watching it in Shudder wouldn't really make a difference to me, I think. So
it might actually be better to watch this at home because it's a TV show, right?
Yeah. You might be right. Get one of those old-timey TVs, like a cathode ray TV.
Yeah, CRT. Yeah.
Plug it in.
Might not work though because there is an aspect ratio change.
Okay.
So it would like kind of fuck up.
It's a bit of fun. I will say that it's not that scary. So don't go into it expecting to be like traumatized. If you're if you're one of those people that absolutely needs to shit your pants every time you watch a horror film, this is not that film, I would say. But it is fun.
But knowing how most people are growing up these days, they're probably going to get traumatized by this movie.
I mean, it's scary enough, I would say.
It's scary. Yeah, I didn't think it was that scary either. There was one kind of bit that like it did kind of have me chilled slightly. Which we can talk about in spoilers, but I think this is a pretty light horror movie. It's not that intense, I don't think. But then again, it is us, so yeah.
Yeah, it's not that intense with an asterisk. But let's get into spoilers, shall we? Big time spoilers for Late Night with the Devil. What do you talk? You talk about the worms thing, right?
Yeah. So there's like one of the characters in the. He's kind of like the co-host, would you say?
The Paul Schaefer.
yeah, the Paul Schaefer of Jack Delroy.
Night Owls, yeah.
Yeah, so he's kind of like slowly getting more and more freaked out by what's happening. And then there's a point in the film where the audience has just seen Mr. Wriggles, who's manifested in
Lily.
What's the character's name? Lily. Yeah, so it's manifested in Lily, and the faces change and the voices change,
and she levitates.
Yeah, and she levitates. So Ian Bliss, or Carmichael, should I say?
Great name, by the way, Carmichael.
Yeah, Carmichael is definitely a fucking conjurer's name. Yeah. He tries to prove it that it's just like a mass hypnosis kind of thing, and so he hypnotizes Gus to make himself believe that like worms are bursting out of him.
Yep.
And yeah, you see it, and you see like he's like ripping. He like first pulls it out of his neck, and then he opens his stomach, and all these worms are just coming out of his stomach.
Yep.
And this giant like worm puppet monster thing like bursts out of his eyes, and then it has that kind of weird. It's got that weird, uncanny practical effect.
Yeah, it looks like a puppet.
When it's it looks like a puppet. It's kind of like when you see a thing in like The Thing or any kind of those weird like early 90s, late 80s practical. And I really enjoy that kind of special effects.
It looks cool, but it doesn't look real.
Looks cool. It doesn't look real, but it's still like disturbing somewhat. Yeah. I think that's like usually the style that I quite enjoy when it comes to practical effects, I think. Yeah. But then it's all hypnosis until the devil actually comes back and then wreaks havoc. I guess.
Yeah. So eventually after Carmichael does his thing and shows like somebody like him could easily like do a mass hypnosis on the audience to make them see what he wants them to see, and he uses that as an explanation for how Lily did what she did. People are kind of on the fence. Like we as the audience know that Carmichael is going to get some mad comeuppance. Yeah. And he kind of does.
Yeah, it turns into like an instant simp.
Yeah. Which is pretty funny.
It's really funny.
So, but what did you think of... well, let's start with the exorcism, I guess, which is almost the marquee scare of the film, because this is like in the trailer. You kind of see that this is going to happen in the trailer. So, and like generally exorcism-based movies, the main thing is the exorcism.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was all right. Like, again, not all that scary, but it does all the exorcism kind of things. Her face goes all weird. Her voice goes all weird. She does a little bit of swearing, which is fun.
Yeah. I think, I thought it was all right as well. Like, I didn't find it particularly scary, but I thought, like, it was fun to watch.
It's kind of tense because, like, again, you don't know what kind of movie this is going to be, like, whether it's going to be, like, a super violent film or whether it's going to be light on the gore. So when, like, Lily seemingly becomes unpossessed and has her head down, and Dr. June is like, Lily, are you okay? and she leans in real close. Like, you don't know what's going to happen at that point. Like, so like your imagination does a lot of like the heavy lifting. You think maybe Lily's going to like bite her ear off or her face or something. So I think the scares and tension kind of come from your own imagination rather than anything that actually happens.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I mean, when we say like something is not scary, that's not like a negative. Like, it's kind of like when we say middle of the road, it's kind of like leans more slightly to the negative. But I think the movie is tense, and I was saying before, does a really good job at like keeping you invested, and wanting to find out what happens next. And it's just like little tidbits where it's like, yeah, is she gonna like bite her finger off or whatever? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, you are anticipating the horror, I guess, and the horror. Like you see happen to like Gus, who has like all the worms coming out of him. Like, that's really cool. He eventually gets his neck snapped.
Yep.
It's
like the power of Christ compels you.
That's really funny. Yeah. That's kind of a meme now. I think the power of Christ compels you. And then I think June does that as well, but she gets her like throat slit by her necklace. And then Carmichael turns into a simp. He tries to pay. There's a pretty funny. It doesn't pay too much into the plot, but he's like, I have this check that I'll give. Was it like $10,000 to anyone who can prove that magic is real? And then it's like, at this point, he's trying to like pay off the devil. He's like, oh my god, you got this check. And then the Lily just kills him.
Burns him alive.
I enjoyed those, like, I guess, practical like gore effects. But I think when it came to the actual reveal of Mr. Wriggles turning into like a
laser ghost,
like a demon light laser ghost thing. Yeah, I'm not sure how I felt about that particular design. I think that might have been like a budget thing, or maybe that was the intentional design. I just didn't find that scary. But the bit where there's like they're rewatching the footage to see if the levitating and the face changing was real, because after Carmichael has the audience and Dastmalchian believe that they had taken everyone for a fool, Lily's like, why don't we watch the video? So when they're watching the video, there's like a little subliminal flash of something.
Yeah.
And that, like, I usually get creeped out by those things, like little subliminal flashes that you can't.
Is that the bit with the face in the grain?
Yeah. It's like, because he's like, play it like frame by frame, like go slower and slower. And then you see like it's like the ghost of his wife. So at the start of the film, it's like, his wife has passed away from like a cancer and is still like reeling over the loss of it. And, you know, like the whole reason that this whole thing is happening is because his show's about to get canned, so he's trying to push things further and further.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good like device to like make the narrative go like harder, to keep pushing Jack Delroy into getting a reaction from Lily, even though he himself might think it's immoral. Yeah. He's like gonna lose his job.
Yeah, it's a good way to kind of justify his actions, and it's also a good kind of like device to help with the pacing of the movie as well, because like the story is kind of unfolding as you're watching.
So you might be able to help me out with this, because I was trying to connect Delroy's backstory. So at the start of the film, they talk about this kind of, is it like a cult or something of like people that want to be rich, and then they go to the woods or something. Yeah. And then it's not really explained, but it kind of comes out again when Mr. Wriggles has manifested through Lily, and then he's saying like, oh, like what's in the woods, like Jack, and then it's kind of referencing what happened, and then there's kind of a really weird shift after Mr. Wriggles has caused all this chaos. The movie shifts away from its 4:3 aspect ratio, and then it goes into the regular 16:9, and then it's like, then the color grading changes to being like a regular film, I guess. I mean, this is maybe a bad example, but into like the kind of Netflix look, I guess. Yeah. So it's like a lot cleaner. And then all this really weird shit happens, and then he sees his wife in bed, and then there's an owl man who's like, cuckoo, oh, and I found that bit really funny. I really like that. I love it when movies like
just do
kind
a
of
weird
lose
thing.
their shit at the end. They just do weird stuff, and it's just I enjoy it. I'm sure that a lot of people probably don't like it. I like it. I think it's funny, and this is giant owl man.
Yeah,
And I just
it's very deliberate. I think
cool.
it's kind of like an homage to like the Twilight Zone, Twin Peaks.
It's an homage to like a lot of the, I guess they call it like British folk horror. What's that movie that was remade not by Nicolas Cage, The Wicker Man? Like there's a lot of that kind of weird imagery.
Sure. It feels very Stephen King. Like this whole movie kind of felt like a Stephen King story, which
I completely I've forgotten about the owl man until that point. I really enjoyed the owl man. It's just this guy in an owl costume, and he's like, it's just like weird.
I think you see him at the start as well. In the the footage of the cult. So you were wondering about the cult? Is that?
I was just thinking that's like basically from what I've grasped, unless I missed something. It's like
I think he's just part of this kind of like rich guy club that does weird things in the woods together. I don't think he takes it very seriously. I think it's just one of those things that weird rich people do, and then he got into it through connections.
Yeah, it must be just a commentary on celebrities joining weird cults. I mean, there's the really obvious one that,
I mean, who's to say it doesn't work, Harvey? Who's to say that Tom Cruise isn't doomed to be in a Mission Impossible film for eternity when all is said and done? He's got a price to pay, Darby.
It's just funny. Like, I think we were talking about this after we left the cinema. Like, when you get rich to the point where you just do weird shit with your money, you just go and hire like an owl man to like do rituals with or whatever. Like, when's like the threshold? Like once every basic necessity and mod con is like catered for you, and then you just was like, fuck, what am I like? I don't want to. I'm sick of like eating nice food out and stuff, or I'm sick of hanging out. I just need to go.
You know what I'm gonna do?
Spend money on a weird owl
Gonna go
man.
into the woods, drink some goat's blood. Just have a grand old time.
Do you think the modern interpretation of this is like, I mean, harkening back to Bling Empire, just when they do all that really like dumb shit, like just hiring all these spiritual.
I think that's a stepping stone towards going into the woods and doing a weird ritual with your celebrity buddies. Because I mean, this kind of thing does happen in the real world.
It does. Yeah, so it's fucked.
I mean, like everybody's got to have a hobby, and I don't think it's not really anything that people take that seriously unless they're breaking any laws, I guess.
There's so much like weird stuff that people do once you've reached the level of like wealth. It is more common than we think it is, and it's quite scary.
It's not for us to know. It's a different world. I mean, if you're mega rich and listening to this for some reason, comment in. Let us know what that's all about. What are you guys up to? But I think it tied in pretty well, and they bring it back at the end. I think if I had a minor criticism about the narrative, I feel like the idea of Jack being a part of this weird cult and the idea of him being happily married to a seemingly normal woman, I think those two kinds of things are a little bit at odds with each other.
Wasn't she part of the cult as well?
I mean, she like, why do you think
like
that?
Isn't that like what that whole shit is about at the end, where she goes on this spiel that I missed little bits and pieces of, like because he comes across his wife.
So when it gets weird, he like starts kind of reliving past TV show episodes that he's been in, and he can't seem to escape like the stage, and it keeps cutting like to different episodes, and he doesn't really know what's going on. And then eventually like they bring him to his wife, who is dying of cancer and in a bed, and she gives him a talking to. I think she kind of says something along the lines of like, you're on your own now, it's time for me to go. I think like my interpretation of that, and I feel like it might be pretty open to interpretation, but the way I saw it is kind of like she's dead, but she's kind of like communicating with him because he's kind of like at this crossroads situation.
So it's like the typical like grieving host story. Grieving. So
she is like
grief,
going to heaven, but he, because of what
yeah.
he's done, because of what he's given up, his soul essentially, he's not going to be able to join her in heaven. So that's like her saying that we're going to part ways. But then she also gets him to like murder a child. So maybe that was just a demon in disguise. I'm not really sure.
Maybe. I thought, I was on the impression that they had met at this weird like cult thing. And that's how they met each other. I'm not sure what was the piece of backstory that led me to that conclusion. But that's what I thought had happened.
I thought the reveal was going to be that he sacrificed his wife to achieve fame, and this was kind of like his karma. But it wasn't that. I think it was just his soul that he's given up. And I guess him like murdering Lily is like him paying that price as well, maybe, to the demon. It's pretty like open to interpretation, I think, because it gets weird, and I think that's the intent.
But I think I don't think it needs to be explained. I think it's just kind of just leave it in the air, and it doesn't need to have like a fully closed conclusion. I think it's still satisfying. There's probably not going to be a sequel to this, I don't think.
I think it's been fairly well received.
I think it is.
I think all the negative reviews I saw were about AI. So generally people see this pretty well in a good light, and I think the AI stuff doesn't really take away from like the good elements of this film. I guess they could have fixed that skeleton's janky leg, because it's noticeably janky. Like one of the skeletons on the card, the "We'll Be Right Back" cards. I didn't notice that. Looks a bit wonky. But I think it's really solid. It feels like the writers had a very clear vision of what they wanted. Like apparently they based the character of Jack on an Australian talk show host.
Don King or something.
Don Lane.
Don Lane, that's it,
who was an Australian talk show host in the 70s, so before our time, but co-hosted by Bert Newton, who was in Hey It's Saturday for like a million years. So it's a bit of Australiana for you.
I think our parents talked a little bit about Don Lane. I think I remember watching some like documentaries about like Bert Newton and Don Lane. Back in the earlier days.
Good. It makes it feel really authentic. And like Dastmalchian's portrayal of this character, who is like quite flawed, but he's dealing with a lot of grief as well. Like he's got the moments where he's trying to be a charismatic talk show host, but then the moments where like fear creeps in or uncertainty creeps in, I think he does that really well as well. Like we're kind of just
he's really well casted. It's just he's got the face for this character.
I kind of wish he lost his shit a bit more in the climax of the film, because I think he's quite good at losing his shit.
That's true.
So I would have liked to see just a little bit more unhinged fear in him, but I guess he didn't want to go too extra.
Maybe it's something different for him.
I also wish the final design of the demon entity was scarier.
I wish it was more like on the body horror, because I really enjoyed the body horror, which unfortunately didn't actually happen. In a sense, it was just the guys. It would have been cool if like they had gone like the route of like The Thing or something. Like
maybe
that,
a bit more grotesque rather than a laser ghost. Like I kind of get what they were going for. Like they're going for like a Stranger Things kind of vibe. Like the lasers shooting off it look a lot like the Ghostbuster proton beams. So it's kind of that retro vibe.
It suits the vibe. It's definitely like a 70s look, but I think I just would have preferred. I would have preferred something just a little bit more grotesque, but maybe that's been done a lot when it comes to horror, possession horror.
I think maybe I mean it's a little bit Poltergeist as well. I think maybe they were going for something that was like big, but still not uncomfortable to watch.
I haven't seen Poltergeist.
I mean,
have you seen it?
I have a long time ago.
I haven't seen it. I think I was scared as a kid, and then I never watched it, and then I just haven't watched it because just been watching other.
I don't know. I don't think you'd be scared by it.
Probably not.
You'd
not
get it
like
though.
These days.
It's not a bad film.
It's Spielberg, right?
Pretty iconic. But I think this film overall, it's quite good.
I think it's a pretty solid film.
Maybe a little bit forgettable. I mean, as a vehicle for Dastmalchian to get more roles, I think it's really good. I think he's like quite good in it. And I hope we get to see him in more stuff, in leading roles as well, because, you know, he's really good. I read into like a bit of his backstory, and he's spent some time being homeless, being addicted to drugs. So it's really good to see him.
I heard about that. Yeah,
really good to see him, like, you know, being appreciated for his craft.
He can reach into that like pain when he needs to.
Yeah,
that struggle. Yeah, I think it's also good because it's like a good precedent for like high quality indie Australian productions. You know, hopefully more of these projects get greenlit in Australia, so then I can be a part of them. You know, I love a good horror. Like,
not all cinema has to be world changing. You know, we're not we're not all David Guetta. But sometimes a movie can just be a movie.
Yeah, sometimes a movie doesn't need to end racism like David Guetta. Even though David Guetta had already
done it, Tavi.
He did 3 years ago.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is one of those movies that is just a bit of fun, and that's great.
Yeah, definitely. Like, go watch it in the theater if you can, but I also think like if you wait for it on streaming, it might even add to the atmosphere as well. Like,
do you think they could do a re-edited version where it's just the TV show and none of the behind the scenes stuff, and they can add like some old timey commercial breaks as well into it?
Yeah, that might be interesting. Yeah, they won't do it because that's a lot of budget.
I mean, if there was
that would be cool.
If it comes out on Blu-ray, maybe special features. Who knows?
Yeah. I think this will be the kind of movie that will make it to Blu-ray. It's I think the company that is doing the distribution in Australia is Umbrella.
It's Umbrella. I saw them in the production.
Yeah.
There's so many production companies involved in this film.
Umbrella. Yeah. Umbrella is actually like I've bought a fair few things from Umbrella. They've recently done a lot of like Kim Ji-won retrospective stuff, and that's why I bought like my collector's edition of I Saw the Devil and Tale of Two Sisters. Recently I bought like the Raid. They're doing like a limited collector's edition of the Raid, which comes in like a nice box and all this shit. Yeah. So yeah, no, I appreciate Umbrella.
Yeah, they know what's up.
I mean, we're not sponsored by Umbrella. But I mean, if Umbrella are listening, like, yeah, I appreciate the stuff.
We've got some scripts, do. Umbrella, if you wanna reach out. Yeah, you know how to find us.
Yeah. But yeah, keep releasing cool shit. Yeah, they recently released like a collector's edition of Audition and The
I saw that. It popped up on my IG feed. Yeah.
The Audition one sold out. I was thinking about getting it, but I didn't get it in time. But like The Chaser, Chaser is an interesting movie. That's like a cult Korean film. But I getting a bit off track. I'm not sure if I've got that much more to say about this movie.
I think we're good. But guys, what did you think of Late Night with the Devil? Did you enjoy it, or did you find it a little bit not scary for you? Let us know. You can get in touch with us at 2asianblokes@gmail.com. You can join our Facebook group to be part of the conversation, or you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at 2asianblokes to see what we're up to. Thank you as always for listening. Hope you had a good long weekend. If you had a long weekend, I know not everyone in the world has a long weekend.
Japan.
Yeah.
So our Japanese friends,
they've got enough long weekends. I feel like Golden Week is like around this time as well.
I think it's just more the concept of having a break is not within the zeitgeist of that work system.
AI could fix that, Tavi. AI could help us all stop working. If we just give it a chance, Tavi.
Man, Japanese system will never allow AI to be part of their system.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, if they're like,
they're still printing so much stuff.
They're still printing so much shit. They're still like using a lot of. They're still using fax machines, man. Yeah. So. I think they're fine. They should be all right. Yeah.
You know who hates AI, Tavi? Hayao Miyazaki. Have you seen that clip of him like accosting his young employees for like showing him some AI generated like animation? Fucking hates it, Tavi.
Yeah, he does. I don't know what those guys were thinking though, showing him that.
They're thinking that maybe they don't want to do like 20-hour shifts. Yeah. Maybe AI can help them.
They don't want to, but they're not going to convince Miyazaki. No way. No way.
He looks so disappointed in them. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's really funny. He's like, it's an abomination.
Yeah. It's the death of creativity.
This is like an insult to life.
Yeah, something like that. man.
And then there's like I remember someone talking about it, and they did like this really funny edit of like the reaction of one of the guys, and they did like the zoom up at his. The guy's like,
Yeah.
it's really funny. It's exasperated.
Miyazaki.
Anyway,
Miyazaki gives good quote, man. He's good.
he does. Yeah, he's good. Yeah.
All right, guys, that's it for us. We'll see you later.
We'll see you later.